Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brodie Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Brodie Welch, and with me today is one of our most favorite guests from 2018, and that is Dr. Anna Cabeca. She is an internationally acclaimed menopause and sexual health expert, global speaker, and pioneer promoter of women's health. She's an Emory University trained and triple board certified in gynecology and obstetrics, integrative medicine, and anti-aging and restorative medicine, and is the author of The Hormone Fix: Burn Fat Naturally, Boost Energy, Sleep Better, and Stop Hot Flashes. Whew! A diet and holistic lifestyle program for menopausal women. So today we're going to be getting into all kinds of things that we may not necessarily think of as having to do with hormones. With us to unpack all of this is Dr. Anna Cabeca. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brodie. Wonderful to be here with all of you.
First off, if you haven't heard the first episode that we recorded together, it's a no-miss episode. You will learn a ton about hormones and what they do in the body, as well as plenty of practical ways to help balance hormones. But for those who are just wanting to get into it right now with us, I'm curious as to what led you to discover the solution that you propose in the book, The Hormone Fix, about burning fat naturally, boosting energy, sleeping better, and stopping hot flashes.
Well, it was total chaos, but all that was good. I really was, struggling. I said the first time I went through menopause, I was 38. I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure, early menopause, told I would never be able to have another child. And I remember laying awake at night and just, tossing and turning, covers on, covers off. We're flipping around, laying awake. Probably some women in your audience can relate to this. And I was thinking like, oh my God, how did this happen to me? And I was only 38 years old. And that led me on a path of discovery. And I learned, and I really literally went around the world to figure this out. And I learned to restore and rebalance my body, which was just a blessing because then I became pregnant and had my daughter, Ava Marie, when I was 41 years old. So it really did reverse my menopause. And then at the typical time we'd expect to have menopause, for me, it was 48 years old. Typically we average 42, but again, I started struggling and having all the symptoms again, but it was a 5-pound weight gain, 10-pound weight gain, 20-pound weight gain. And I'd been over, 240 pounds and gone down to typically 140 to 150. And so seeing that scale just creep up, it was just like, oh my gosh, I'm doing nothing different. And the scale is moving. Now, I'd heard that from thousands of patients before, Brodie. And I'd heard that same complaint, like, I'm not doing anything different, but, I'm gaining weight. And that was happening to me as well. Not only that, it was irritability, brain fog. Sometimes I would be more inclined to fly off the handle and, just not my personality. So I really looked at, what I was doing and just refined it and research why was everything I was doing that healed me from menopause in the first place. What am I missing now at this age, at this transition hormones, or what am I do? What do I need to do to really to heal my body and balance my hormones and not experience all the changes that were happening? And especially the weight gain for me at that time, again, because I know that my body would just balloon out of control it had before. And so I went to the research and I knew that ketogenic diets, and this is back in 2014, 2015, the benefits of ketogenic diets I'd recommended in my practice for clients with seizure issues and some neurological issues. But anytime I would put, especially a perimenopausal woman on it, they would get irritable and cranky. And that happened to me every time. I'm like, well, there's something wrong with this. And so I had the aha moment of putting my detox program, my alkalinization components of my detox program, rewriting that to be ketogenic as well. And so I combined this green aspect to getting our bodies into ketosis. And man, in 6 weeks, in actually 3 weeks, I'd lost over 15 pounds. By 6 weeks, I'd lost 18 pounds and gotten right back down to where I was. But more than that, I had this emotional and energetic clarity that biblically it's described as the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I kind of call it this energized enlightenment as well. I became really clear. And no brain fog. I had a sense of, good ability to tolerate some really crazy circumstances. And it really just showed that this was the design that our body is optimized at this stage of our life with this hormonal transition. So I dug more into it and I started incorporating it in my recommendations for clients and did a test group. And now I've run thousands of women through what's now my online program called Magic Menopause. So if we can restore balance in our menopausal women, let me tell you, we can restore balance in anyone. So I've just seen amazing transformations, really magnificent transformations in their lives and mine. And that's why I'm really passionate about getting this information out.
And I'm really passionate about getting this information out as well, simply because there's nothing less or there's nothing more disempowering, I think, than to think that you've lost control over your mind, your mood, and your ability to maintain your body the way that you always have. I mean, as many of you know who listen to the show, that I went through menopause early in my mid 30s as well, and that I'm actually still experiencing kind of a cyclical a cycling that I can't see because I'm not bleeding, but emotionally still kind of going through highs and lows. And so it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart in terms of being able to figure out how to not feel either reactive beyond what I consider a normal range of emotion, or to wake up and to feel just utterly despairing and hopeless when my life isn't all that different than it was yesterday. And so it's the kind of thing where if we can recognize that there are things that we can do in our daily lives that can make what can be a multi-year transitional stage, which is natural, but can feel incredibly unsettling when we don't have the reserves, because most of us have been driving and striving and stressing, which leaves less hormones available for this transition to feel easeful. So I'm wondering if you can break down a little bit of, first of all, what a ketogenic diet is conventionally, what's wrong with it, and why kind of the keto-green approach that you take is smarter.
I love the concept of a ketogenic diet. I love the research on it. I love the history and ancestry of ketogenic eating. I think it's really, really fascinating. I think there's also this difference between men and women, right? Men do it different than women. Men and women are different. Our bodies are different. We can tolerate different things. And so there's that gap there. No big surprise to our listeners, right? Men and women
are chemically privileged.
And it's so sad because I tell my women going through Magic Menopause, like, yeah, you may lose 10, 20 pounds. Your husband's going to lose twice as much, twice as fast. Just, I'm sorry.
Brace yourself for that.
Brace yourself for that. But, of course, they're so excited too, because as they get better and healthier together, it just adds connection and intimacy in the relationship. So I love to see that as well. But we're different. So there's several aspects. We can do ketogenic right and we can do it wrong. We can do it right through, really wholesome sources. I really feel like if you're choosing between two eggs and one is farm raised and one is your free range, or one is essentially caged and one is free range eating, living, running, playing, and then mercifully sacrificed, right? In as pleasant an environment as possible, that they don't get their stress hormone up at the same time. We've got two separate chickens, right? Where was I, Brodie? I was talking about eggs or chickens. I don't know. I went from the chicken to the egg pretty quickly, or the egg to the chicken. But you get what I'm saying here. So our choices make a difference. And certainly when we're eating ketogenic and eating a high meat diet, we have to take that into consideration. But I also think that, our ancestors didn't eat meat every day, every part of the day either. There's fasting and there's foraging that is part of our ancestry. And so as I explored this and I look at some of the bacon and butter camps versus the, working to have more of a vegan ketosis, I fully claim that I'm an omnivore and I don't villainize any food source. I want us as women, as men, to discern what works for our body and what doesn't work for our body, and to test, not guess. So in creating my Keto-Green way and methodology, I really looked at what is happening in our body with what it is we're doing and eating. And so I created urine test strips to look at urinary pH. That's the green part, the alkalinity. We want to maintain an alkaline urine to the best of our ability. There's times it will be acidic with the stress and exercise, etc. And starvation too will make us have acidic urine. But there's also times when we will have it very alkaline. And that's the ideal, because an alkaline urine, according to research and scientific studies, is associated with decreased metabolic syndrome, decreased hypertension, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. So we want that. We want an alkaline urine because we have an osteoporosis. Let's add that in there. So we want it for better hormone balancing. So that's key. The other thing is, are we actually getting into ketosis? And I like to get in us as women into ketosis through intermittent fasting, through, certainly low carbohydrates, but the carbs we're choosing are higher in alkalinity. So the low, the leafy greens, the dark leafy greens that are mineral rich, like chard and beet greens and kale, and then the cruciferous vegetables, that we incorporate those foods to help alkalinize our body in the face of, an acid forming load diet. But really to choose that, because we can, even in my programs, in my book, I give a 10-day quick start Keto-Green detox diet. I also give 21 days of meal plans. You'll see there's a rhythm to the method of eating Keto-Green. There's intermittent fasting. There's seafood, there's chicken, there's vegan choices, there's, bone broth or alkaline broth. There are different things that we use, but also chosen to balance our hormones and support our body's detoxification system with the, root vegetables, or the vegetables that are recommended, sulfur forming to support our body's detoxification pathways, plenty of methylated green vegetables that are high in methylation ingredients, or vitamins and minerals, and that makes a difference. So
could you give us some examples for that? Like the sulfur containing, like, so that for
onion, garlic.
Exactly.
Big ones. Yeah.
Onions and garlic, and are for helping with the detoxification. And then the other class that you mentioned just a second ago,
cruciferous.
The cruciferous. And these are important in terms of helping support detox pathways as well.
Yes.
What's the connection? Like, why is menopause such a challenging time for maintaining our body weight?
Well, we are rewiring essentially. So that's a great question. Because why should it be, right? Why should it be? Well, there's have to go back to the rewiring of when we started our periods. And that's a unique time period for us as women, when we start our periods, when we end our periods. And these hormonal transition times certainly have evolved for a purpose. And so identifying that, okay, well, what's my purpose post-menopause? I call this a period of post-menopausal growth. And we don't want it to be, wide. We're not growing, in weight, right? We're growing spiritually, emotionally, energetically, purposefully, all of these things. So we want to have that. The issue is that we do get into a metabolic stall, and several hormonal shifts are going on here. We are lower in progesterone, lower in estrogen, and estrogen is really one of the key things, is that this physiologic change is signaling the body into more of a hibernation mode, more of a metabolic stall. And one key aspect of this also triggering the brain, because estrogen is necessary for gluconeogenesis in the brain. So we use either glucose for fuel in the brain or ketones for fuel in the brain. So glucose is sugar. So we use one or the other. But if we have high amounts of circulating sugar, a high standard American diet with a lot of carbs, and if we're going to have this menopausal brain fog, and that can really affect us in so many ways. So it's important that we understand why we really need to shift to using ketones for fuel. And I'm not, like incredibly unwavering about this. I mean, I have my 80-10-10 rule, Brodie. I'm like, I like feasting, fasting, and 80% keto-green. So the other 10% feasting, the other 10% fasting. So we need to have that good diversity. I think that flexes our muscles, so to speak, when we have some variations in our diet and lifestyle periodically, but we want celebrations as well.
This episode is brought to you by the Learn From Home department at BrodieWelch.com. The two things that I keep hearing over and over again from people in clinic that they want more than anything else is more energy and less stress. The number one thing people say they know they need to do but aren't doing is start a meditation practice. If this is you, you can do all of these things in just 20 minutes a day with my Learn From Anywhere Qigong class. Qigong, or energy exercise, is like a gentle exercise and moving meditation all in one. When I was first thinking about how I could help the most people improve their health and happiness in the shortest way possible for the lowest dollar value, the answer was crystal clear: teach people Qigong. In just 20 minutes a day, you can increase your energy and mobility while calming your nervous system and your mind. You can do it anywhere, anytime, with no special equipment and without getting sweaty. And when you change the way you breathe and move, you dramatically change how you feel. For just $97, you can download a simple practice that's like a multivitamin for each of your organ systems. In addition, I walk you through how to do each of the movements step by step. If you already have a meditation practice, check out my breathing bundle, a collection of practices designed to help you regulate your nervous system, whether you need calming, centering, or energizing. Explore 12 Treasures, the Breathing Bundle, and more at BrodieWelch.com. That's Brodie with an IE and Welch with a CH. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show. I believe that if we can digest something, we should digest it periodically. That we want to maximize what's possible for ourselves in terms of being able to get nutrition from a diversity of ingredients, and also just the idea that diets aren't forever, right? Like that there's things that we can do to manage transitions, and then there's kind of like just how we want to choose to live.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you.
So the brain could be burning sugar as fuel or burning ketones as fuel. And ketones are what's produced when we're in a fasting state or when we're in a fat burning state. And that the ketosis, burning ketones, is what allows us to not have brain fog and to feel clear. Is that correct?
Right.
I'm wondering about moods as well. Is it similar, like in terms of managing the mood changes that occur with menopause? How important is this keto alkaline diet in terms of mood management?
I think it's really essential because the way I work with greens and diversity of food choices is really to support the microbiome and microbial diversity, so that healthy bacteria that lives within our gut that produces more serotonin than we produce in our nervous system is really significant. And it's also responsible for estrogen detoxification. So we call it the estrobolome. And so we want a healthy, diverse bacteria. So diversity of our diet and our food choices with lots of, plants from the earth make a big difference in that. It can really help. And as estrogen declines, serotonin also declines. There's a very symbiotic relationship between the two. So we often see this increase in anxiety, agitation, depression, with decreasing levels of serotonin. As progesterone declines, progesterone is related very closely and is necessary for GABA, or allopregnanolone production, to produce GABA, which is a hormone of relaxation, of awe. So as progesterone starts steeply to decline, even in our mid-30s to late 30s, we again see that anxiety, difficulty sleeping, moodiness, PMS, all of those symptoms are intricately related to our hormonal production. And these are, I'll say that our reproductive hormones are our minor hormones, but they are completely mastered by cortisol and insulin. And in my program, and as I realized this, as I, dug into the research, worked with clients and, metabolically stalled clients for decades, right, to improve their metabolism, improve their weight loss, improve their hormonal balance, that, I kept fine tuning and getting to the underlying reason why they were having this difficult time or transition period. And so it came to understanding the master hormones. So insulin and cortisol being our master hormones, as much as I'd like as a gynecologist to say it's progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, but it's really cortisol and insulin. And then our master of all masters, the queen of all hormones, is oxytocin, our hormone of love, bonding, and connection. And that is a master mood hormone. That's a hormone of peace and joy and enjoyment and happiness. And so when cortisol is high and out of whack, not only will progesterone and testosterone and estrogen be affected, but oxytocin is also affected.
Negatively, right?
Negatively, all of them negatively. So it's that burnout, that disconnect, that, effect of chronic long-term stress that has this emotional wearing on our bodies, physiologically, mentally, spiritually.
And then we're supposed to, ideally, post-menopause, the adrenals are supposed to be our secondary source of estrogen and progesterone, right?
Yes.
And so if we have been burning the candle at both ends and stressing out and treating life as an emergency prior to menopause, that it's going to be even harder at that point. And I love that you brought up oxytocin as the queen of hormones. I was like, oh yeah, cortisol, clearly. So that if cortisol is the major stress hormone in the body's going to prioritize survival over having babies. The body's going to prioritize survival over pretty much everything. And so it makes sense that that cortisol is going to affect absolutely everything else in the body. Insulin, of course, is important for us to be able to get energy into our cells and for our metabolism, for our ability to regulate blood sugar. It also makes sense that is pretty key. But yes, like ultimately we are mammals. We are hardwired for social connection, and that loneliness is one of those huge risk factors for really mortality, right? It's supposed to be as big a risk factor as smoking cigarettes. And so the idea that oxytocin is another main player that governs, yes, like that if we think about like estrogen and progesterone as like governing the reproductive system, but also playing into these other things, that it makes sense that oxytocin, our ability to feel connected, to feel loved, to feel bonded, is going to affect potentially everything.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for pointing that out. With serotonin and GABA, you mentioned these neurotransmitters. You mentioned that that estrogen and serotonin decline together, and that progesterone and GABA similarly. Are there foods that we could be eating to increase our serotonin and GABA?
Well, definitely. And with serotonin, certainly tryptophan containing foods and B vitamins. Those are the two biggies. And calcium, rich foods. So all our dark leafy greens. And for tryptophan, we think now with, turkey is a classic, oats is another one, nut butters too with tryptophan. So you can think of those predominantly for tryptophan containing foods, but always combining it with your dark leafy greens to get the methylators and the B vitamins to go along there. So that is one. We can also supplement with 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan. And I typically would start clients off at 50 milligrams in the morning, or if they were having difficulty, start it at night. And if they're still having issues, increase it to 100, 200 milligrams once or twice a day, depending, just to really give the cofactors to support the body's natural production of serotonin. So that's one way to kind of speed up the process and empower and improve the serotonin, where we're working on all the lifestyle and hormone balancing objectives that we have. And secondly, like with GABA, one of the things with progesterone that I use regularly, because I want to increase progesterone. So in order to do that, number one, we got to decrease stress. So we have more of our natural hormone to begin with. So a lot of lifestyle factors there, but also healthy fats. Can't underestimate the importance of healthy fats. In the 80s, women of the 80s, we were told, low fat diets. Well, it really destroyed our hormones, and certainly can blame it to make menopause a lot tougher transition than it should have been had we not villainized fats. And it's hard for women to reintroduce fats into their diets, but it's so satisfying. Oh my gosh. And we have this conversation with my women in my online programs all the time. And gosh, it's so satisfying to be able to eat, some ghee or butter and to enjoy your olive oil just incredibly over your foods and your healthy avocados and fatty foods that you enjoy, healthy fats. So like salmon and sea bass and good stuff like that.
They're so delicious.
So delicious. And they're just satisfying, and it just takes away hunger cravings. So it's important to understand that, but also using bioidentical progesterone. One of the natural solutions that I created for my clients is my Pure Balance PPR cream, and that has progesterone and pregnenolone in it, and just a balancing moisturizing cream with some great essential oils as well. It just can make a difference because we're losing the progesterone. The mother hormone is the first to decline with the decrease in ovarian function, so a little bit goes a long way, especially in helping us produce GABA and getting restful, restorative sleep so our body can intelligently use that time and its resources to repair. And it just makes a difference. In my over 2 decades of practice, that's one of the things that has made a really, really big difference. Plus giving your body more of the nutrients to support your adrenals. And so that's greens and maca. And that also is part of my realization as I work to heal my body. And that's why I created Mighty Maca, which is my superfood combination that has maca in it, which is a cruciferous root that grows in the Andes and is an adrenal adaptogen. And it's worked wonders to help our, so many women and men just kind of regain some vitality and energy, not to mention libido. So that's been a big part. But I combined it through personal experience, but also scientifically with other ingredients and that are time tested as well, like turmeric and quercetin, resveratrol, grapeseed extract, additional greens in there and enzymes and fruit extracts as well. And it's just the combination really helps support the body's natural ability to do what it needs to do. And so between the two, I've seen progesterone levels really improve.
You are by far my favorite person to geek out with on women's hormones. This has been such an awesome deep dive into how we can be supporting ourselves through this incredibly powerful transition period that doesn't have to suck. And I just really appreciate your time. The book, again, is The Hormone Fix: Burn Fat Naturally, Boost Energy, Sleep Better, and Stop Hot Flashes. And I imagine people can get that wherever books are sold if people want to connect with you. It's drannacabeca.com, correct?
You can just do dranna.com, dranna.com. Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Brodie.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodiewelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.